It,
Shown.
it looks perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, then let me start. Hello, everyone. My name is Marcelo. I'm the field biologist at the Golden Parakeet Reintroduction project in Brazil. And I'm gonna talk about a case study we executed about the reproduction that we observed here in our project. Well, the golden parakeet is an endemic species found only in the Brazilian part of the Amazon forests. They live in groups that average 10 individuals in the wild. The species is currently considered vulnerable to extinction due to poaching and habitat loss, according to IUCN. And regarding their reproduction, they are very dependent on primary forests with very tall trees that have already died and have plentiful and ideal cavities for them to nest. And the species is also known to execute communal nesting, and they also exhibit a very rare behavior, the nest helping behavior, in which and not only the breeding pair takes care of the chicks and raise them, but the whole group takes care of them by helping the parents and the chicks. The species is locally extinct in most of its original distribution. That was the part of the Amazon that was colonized firstly. And we chose to reintroduce them near the capital of the state of Pará, Belém, because in this region now there are protected areas that in theory they should be safe now here. And for this reintroduction, we used mainly captive bred individuals that were raised at Leamington Foundation in the state of São Paulo, which is a conservationist breeding facility. For our reintroduction, we use the soft release method. We bring the birds to acclimatization aviaries in which they are kept for around 5 months. During we teach them daily how to process and recognize native food. We stimulate them to fly daily to develop their flying muscles. And then we release them back to the wild, keeping the enclosures open. To further increase their site fidelity, we provide them with nest boxes that are also aimed at enabling reproductive attempts. And we also provide them with daily food supplementation to maintain them close and to also help during the reproductive events. We have released over 50 individuals in the wild by now, and they are divided mostly in two groups. The first group of 7 individuals that we released in 2018 that have already dispersed, and a more recent group of 10 individuals that we looked more closely in this study. Regarding the reproductive results that we observed during this 7-year period at least 6 attempts of reproduction. In 3 of these events were successful, with chicks being raised to adulthood and surviving. We had one first event with only one chick being raised, one event that had 5 chicks being raised at once in last year, and in the beginning of this year, we had another event with only one chick again being raised. The 3 events that failed happened so due to the eggs not being fertilized adequately or the eggs being broken during the hatching period. In no instance we observed any nest predation or individuals starving to death inside the nest. We only observed individuals not being born. And the hatching period lasted around 30 days, and the fledging period until the birds left the nest by themselves took around 60 days. Regarding their reproductive behavior, we started by looking at at the copulation events that we were able to observe in a space of 2 years, we were able to observe 76 copulation events in the 10 individual group. And to take a closer look at them, we divided the individuals in these names here with the letters representing the release cohort of each individual, with letters A being in the individuals that were released firstly 4 years ago, and the individuals to the letter D being the ones that we released more recently, 1 year ago. This group had 3 females and 3 males. By observing their copulations, one of the things that we observed that was very interesting is that every individual in the group, not only the breeding pairs, not only the actual breeding individuals, every single individual copulated at least a few times, many of them with more than one individual. So every individual in the group tried to copulate, but we could also observe that most of the copulations, over 70% of the events, were concentrated in the first release cohort, the older individuals that were more dominant in the group. In regard to the breeding period, we took around 520 hours of observation during 3 reproductive events.
Tá com fome? Papá?
And we saw a clear division between the breeding individuals and the helping individuals of the group. The breeding individuals barely left the nest at all. They stood most of the time, most of the day inside the nest and didn't even leave to even feed. That's because the helper individuals brought most of the food to them, so they didn't have to leave the nest, and the other individuals also guarded the nest. In this graphic, we represented what each individual was doing daily. Obviously, the breeders, as I said, they did not leave the nest at all, represented by the blue bars here, which is the time they were inside the nest or guarding its entrance. But the most interesting thing that we observed was that helping individuals, the other individuals of the group, showed a clear pattern of helping in regards to how long they were in the wild. The individuals from latest cohorts, the older, the ones that were in the wild for a longer time, they helped the other individuals by guarding the nest considerably more than in the individuals that were released in more recent years. We saw a clear correlation in that regard. And in regard to the allo feeding, the events in which the helpers brought food not only to the breeding parents inside the nest, but also to the chicks once they were big enough and after they left the nest, we observed the exact same pattern. These 3 individuals that were from latest cohorts were the ones that executed more than 90% of the feedings. However, we could also see that the other individuals that did not help much, they also tried a few times. But once again, we saw this same correlation. We also observed a few interesting things as well, that mainly the helping individuals not only guarded the nest, but they also defended it against potential predators. Once they saw a monkey or a raptor, they tried to drive it away from the nest by pursuing it or calling its attention. However, one thing that we observed that we did not expect was that araçaris and toucans, which are considered to be the main nest predators for the golden parakeets in the wild, they were completely ignored by the helpers and the parents, despite being very common in the breeding zone that we studied. So for some reason, they didn't perceive them as a threat. And another interesting thing is that the nest helpers, once the chicks left the nest, they guided these young almost as much as the parents themselves. they did not only feed them, but they also guided them once they, in moments in which they strayed too far from the breeding grounds, to bring them back. They guided them in feeding grounds, in natural feeding grounds, and not only in the suspended feeders that we provided. We saw not only the parents, but every individual in the group taking care of the young once they left the nest, which is very interesting. Well, to conclude this presentation, we believe that this nest helping behavior that we observed was the main cause that allowed this one very successful event in which 5 individuals were raised at once. That's we think because in the breeding facilities at Leamington Foundation, no couple was ever capable of raising more than 2 chicks at once. Every time there's a third or fourth chick, they remove these chicks to be raised by hand feeding, because the only 2 parents, they barely leave the nest at the breeding facilities as well, so they can't feed everyone. But with the help of many individuals in the group helping everyone, they were able to raise a lot of chicks at once. And we also believe that the fact that the birds that were reintroduced for a longer time helped more was linked to how stronger their bonds to the rest of the group is, and that shows how different individuals have different levels of dominance and importance in the group in regarding to feeding. And to close, it's a very positive thing to observe this behavior, which is a considerably rare behavior, rarely observed in other bird species, other parrots. It was very interesting to see that even though these individuals were raised in captivity, they were able to express this behavior with success after being reintroduced in the wild. Thank you everyone for your time and your attention. Here's my contact if you have further questions lately. And thank you to our sponsor, our main sponsors of the project as well. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Marcelo. It looks like we have a time for at least one question here in the